watching coverage and doing coverage this weekend is so much more entertaining. On our left, we have Quebec's own Kevin Anctil. Old man still got it, as he said in his tweet announcing his top eight. And he did it in style, Mason, with there's not a ton of originality in the standard format, not to dress it up too much, but this is a really cool twist on a pretty familiar concept. And the first real innovation, I think, coming out of these RCs that we've seen since the beginning.
Yeah, this is sort of like the Teamer Otters deck minus all the Otter combo-y stuff, right? Like, what if instead of playing those cards, we just played more of the things like that Is It Prowess does? And speaking of Otters, Kevin's opponent's Ray Zhang, better known as CFTSOC, one of the people who has put some of the most work in on the Otters deck. I would love to know Ray's thoughts on Kevin's deck, Like, is
Yes.
Ray jealous? Like,
right?
Yes. And also, I mean, Ray has just been on a dominant run in Magic over the last couple of years. Has been innovating deck lists, crushing tournaments. We talked about had some bad luck qualifying in the United States when it came to the RCs, but only because Ray didn't know they needed to RCQ. So they went into the LCQs, lost in the finals of a couple, didn't go well, flew to Canada, made the LCQs there, won out, and now today is our third seed in top eight and is standing in the way of Kevin here, as one of these players is going to move on and battle out for a chance to go to Worlds, as both players have already qualified for the Pro Tour.
Truly unrivaled warrior spirit from Ray. I think we can all agree. And it takes good mental game in a sense, or possibly addiction, maybe both, to lose in the finals of an LCQ for the second time back to back, and then decide, what, third time's a charm. I'm gonna hop over the border, see if the Canadians will be more hospitable, and so far so good, frankly.
Yeah, I was joking about it yesterday in coverage, but I'll bring it up again here. It's nice to see, someone from the States come up to Canada and farm their tournament for once. For years, the Canadians have been coming down to the States and just, slapping us around. Domir, one of them. But finally, Ray goes up there and doing a good job so far, as Kevin is mulliganing down to 6. Now, this is a pretty interesting matchup. We actually saw this in our round 11 today for David Rude, who we thought was actually dead for the Pro Tour, Dom, but for the people at home, got 11th on Breakers. So D Rude will be at the Pro Tour as well. Tweeted about how it's just like 2005 again, 2025, maybe there's a sign. But the matchup was really, really close, and unfortunately, turns kind of decided it. David conceded to Kevin, feeling that, Kevin was behind and made a bunch of plays to try to win the game that probably made Kevin less likely to win if there was a natural outcome. Now, no time limit, Dom. We're in top 8.
Yes, and this is going to be a treat to watch. We asked when Kevin popped up the first few times, how is this deck against Is It? I mean, we got to watch that fantastic match against D-Rude. Now, time is not a factor. Both players still do have to play at a reasonable pace, of course. But Kevin is up against one of the best players in the room, a prowess master, and the foremost aficionado in decks kind of like Kevin's, right? So
that's a good way to put it. Decks kind of like Kevin's. Oh my goodness. Wow. Kevin has drawn a card that's seemingly thrown off his game plan. Normally, a lot of players, when you're mulliganing, right, you think like, okay, I'm probably going to end up doing this turn 1, barring this sort of thing. Something changed Kevin's mind. We're not running out the Storm Chaser's talent. Ray's going to play a Drake Catcher and pass the turn. Opt for Kevin. Up the Beanstalk in hand here, a very tempting turn 2. Very different kind of card than Drake Catcher, though.
Yeah, we mentioned Ray's list rejects the usual dichotomy of, well, am I an aggressive prowess deck? Am I a slower prowess deck? They have the Swift Spears. They also have the Drake Catchers and Thundertrap Trainers. So, they can go long. They can take an aggressive stance if they need to. And I think part of the logic here is, if you're a prowess deck, you're just casting a bunch of spells, trying to build towards these big turns, a 1-mana haste threat with prowess, that's not just an aggressive card. That's just a good card in that plan. But it can also be aggressive if you lead with that on turn 1, and you can have a very aggressive nut draw.
Yeah, looks like maybe some confusion among players. Ray attacked. Kevin took the damage. Ray put the counters. All right, so it looks like we're actually a far racing. Maybe a little bit of miscommunication. Sometimes things like yeah can be interpreted as like, that's happened, but also yeah can be like, yeah, you're attacking, I'm thinking. Ray just gonna replay this Drake Catcher after it's been bounced. Surveils Forest Op to the graveyard as another Up the Beanstalk hits the hand. Weird spot from Kevin here. Hearth Elemental. Yeah, big boy coming down.
Yeah, and I would say on balance, we've seen probably 80+% of the time, Hearth Elemental just casts a 4/5, and then the Stoke Genius mode is almost like a pleasant stretch goal if it happens to work out, but it's not not the main mode of the card by any means.
Yeah, it just turns out 4/5 has been well statted and good. And here for Ray, it's looking to a similar thing. We do have a Torch the Tower in hand, so we're gonna be able to trade off some stuff to kill this Hearth Elemental. But my real question is, can we kill this without losing too much on our side? CFT here, taking a think. Attacks with just Draycatcher. Kevin, take a look at the hand again. It's double Up the Beanstalk, Stormtrooper's Talent, land. No block, and Ray has no spells to play with it. Just gonna hit Kevin for one. We're gonna see another Draycatcher and a pass the turn, setting up for that bigger turn. Ray happy just to develop here.
Ray also rocking the Neon Dynasty set championship shirt, the rainbow koi fish, which is very
Yeah, nice shirt. Double Up the Beanstalk is on the table for Kevin. Looks like we're gonna start with at least the first. Draw a card. The Vista.
What intonation, Mason?
What in tarnation are we doing here? As it looks like we're gonna actually play it for turn. I was curious if we would do that versus, playing a second Up the Beanstalk. Pretty tempting.
Ray, also the person in this top 8, probably the least likely to have to read Tarnation Vis.
Oh yeah.
Based on their Otters experience.
Yeah. Tarnation Vista on your screen there. Into the Flood Mob, bounce the Hearth Elemental. I was a little surprised not to see the talent played last turn, to be honest. I guess maybe saving it for a Corey Steelcutter type situation. And now, Kevin with 5 cards in hand, one's Hearth. Ray gets to attack with all these prowess creatures currently for 6 damage. Remember that as a Drake token on Draycatcher at the bottom of your screen, not a +1/+1 token. So it's going to make Drakes, which honestly, Dom, you and I have not seen all weekend. This is round 15 of Magic for us.
We haven't needed a Drake token so far, and we've featured a fair amount of prowess on camera. Some with Drake catchers, some without, some with 4, some with less. But we have not seen an actual Drake token. I guess to some extent, right? If the threat of that warps the entire game around it, it's kind of doing its job. But it does also refute the idea that, well, you kind of need the Hatcher. Everything revolves around the Hatcher. It's been good, but it hasn't, the whole brood hasn't really shown up as you might expect.
Yeah, I think Draycatcher is good, and like you said, maybe it's doing its part, even though it's not like doing something right. But I think finding of the card, right, when players weren't prepared for it, that's when this card was just an absolute monster. If you had Draycatcher and your opponent didn't, or didn't know about this card and didn't build their deck or play the games in mind, it totally swung things wide open, which I think led to a lot of players being like, "Oh, Draycatcher is the truth." Obviously, a great card either way. Ray, I think, really tanking here on if I want to commit something like a monstrous rage, get more Drakes, or do I want to rage something like the Otter and just get, one Drake off the double prowess triggers from my 2 Drake catchers. Now, This is untimed. The players do have to play at a competitive pace.
Yeah, Ray really. So I think sees this as a very pivotal turn, and so
Mhm,
uh, putting a lot of energy into this decision. I think realizing that okay, the upside here, right? If let's say there's no Fowler's Dispersal or Flood or anything like that, you can deal so much damage and create enough of a board presence that even if Kevin can stitch together some like big this hound turn or whatever, there's
mhm.
just so much stuff it'll be kind of impossible to deal with all of it. And I think goes for it in the end, realizing that okay, even in the worst case scenario, kind of, well, the other Drake catcher is kind of connecting. It's still a decent chunk of damage. Like the downside's not too bad. And yeah, if you have a second Monstrous Rage, yeah, fire it
Yeah.
off. Go for both of them, definitely.
Yeah, these are huge Drake catchers. I mean, there's 3 prowess triggers on all the creatures. So that's 9 damage just from that, 12 from their base power, an extra 4 from the monstrous rage, and then the 2 from the monstrous rolled. I believe that's 18.
Just a cheeky turn 4 kill here, camera on camera, Mason.
I think
Let's see.
so. Yeah. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that's 18 damage. Yeah, and Kevin's gonna pick the cards up.
Also want to call out here, those are the 2 Monstrous Rages in CFT's main deck. They are a believer in having access to that card, and there are some spots where that is your best card. But despite what the Swift Spears might suggest in terms of aggression, they don't believe that you have to be as committal as that. But turns out sometimes drawing 2 Monstrous Rages, even just drawing the first, can lead to some pretty explosive turns.
Definitely. And I think it also shows, you know, why Ray is willing to maybe not have a card like Slick Shot show off, right? Like a lot of people think, well, one of the best parts about Slick Shot is that it leads to these turn 3, turn 4 kills more likely, right? Like it is so much damage. And while it does produce a ton of damage, well, Draycatcher there also, you know, just being a prowess thing, it can work out pretty well. And even if, let's say, we were one short, right? There'd have been so many Drakes made that it would have been basically insurmountable for somebody. But this is CFTSOC's is it prowess list on screen here. Dom, we've watched this a couple times this weekend. As we have with Kevin, anything in particular you want to bring in here?
So I think CFT probably has a more educated understanding of the matchup than
Mhm.
really any of us would, just given that experience of sorts on both sides there. Um, I imagine Hearth Elemental coming in. I mean, we saw Kevin's Hearth Elementals be so good for him. Scorching Shot to clear opposing Hearth Elementals, perhaps, and then could see some amount of the. We have one-offs of 6 or 7 different interactive cards, right? So uh, depending on how you envisage the game's going, I mean, really, any number of these could be useful. So I'm excited to see where they land on that. And on Kevin's side, I think it's actually a little bit more clear cut, perhaps. So Heritage Reclamation for Cutter, Talent, and so on, and change the equation. Of course, we've seen this before. We've just seen Kevin play enough of these games to kind of have a sense of what the vision is and how he wants to go about it. So uh, yeah, not too much changing here, both in terms of surprises and also how many cards in versus how many out.
Yeah, it's a really, really cool deck with a lot of different ways to sideboard. But we have seen Kevin play this matchup. Was it now, Dom? 3 times. So we got a good idea of what Kevin's up to. Now, here's what I'm curious for you, Dom. Ray has 2 Rows in the sideboard. We saw David Rude bring in at least 1 in the game, and it kind of got instantly shot down, right? Kevin had to torch the tower and answer for the otter token, and then boom, we killed the Row. What do you think about Row though? Do you think like the games kind of lend themselves to doing something like that, or do you think that's much more of a I think you could do, but maybe you're not in love with?
It's a card which is uh, like a lot of the other 4 drops. Like we saw Enduring Curiosity, same deal. A lot better when you're ahead than when you're behind. And there's so much cheap interaction and bounce and so on that it's easy for your position to kind of collapse, and then you spend 4 mana on this RAL, and that's not helping you. That said, in a mirror of sorts, right? You have your bounce spells, you have your cheat removal, you have other threats that are distractions, so you can protect the RAL. If you let's say have RAL in your opening hand, you can sculpt a game towards RAL being good and being the thing that like breaks the game open in your favor. So my inclination would be we probably will see them come in. How much importance will be placed on them is anyone's guess, though.
Makes sense to me. All right. Well, it looks like the players are done sideboarding. So we're doing a little shuffling up here before we move on to game number 2 and our top 8. Remember, we are bringing you all the rounds today. And that's all thanks to Face-to-Face Games. Thank you, Face-to-Face, for helping put on the coverage here for this weekend and make it all happen. Dom and I are very happy to help bring this paper magic and talk over it with you all.
Yeah, I'm getting so much FOMO watching this, but the next best thing, or honestly even better in a lot of ways, is getting to cover it yourself, right? So this has been a real treat, and the best is yet to come, right? We have our quarterfinals, our semis, and then our finals. So the stakes are only getting higher from here, and we're going to have Worlds invites on the line soon, even more money. Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
It's going to be awesome. Dom, you're going to need to just keep chaining Pro Tour qualifications so we can keep doing commentary together.
I'm trying, okay? I'm doing my best.
All right. Just think about me, Dom. Do it not for yourself, but for the people.
You are the main character again, so really, as a NPC, who you interact with on an occasional side quest, everything I do is really in your service.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, what do you do when I'm not around? Do you just kind of wait?
I think it's like a quantum thing where if you're not perceiving me, I don't actually exist.
That's my trick, Dom. I'm always perceiving you. As these players draw up their opening hands here. Evan? Got a couple lands, got a Core Steel Cutter, got an Opt, got a Flood Maw. Ray, no idea. Holding the cards straight up, holding them at an angle I can't see, not flicking them.
One of the best things about paper magic to me is just people's paper mechanics, right? How they hold their cards, how they arrange their cards, just everything bound up in that. So someone like Kevin, right? Clearly very experienced, very practiced, has a kind of intuition for how to do all these things. But it's not that different from really anyone else of his vintages, right? Whereas Ray and others, almost part of their magic personality, if you want to put it that way, is how they they shuffle, they hold cards, use cards. We saw like the enchantment zone in between the creatures and the lands last game. Like I know that there's a certain distinctness to that I think is often quite charming, as long as it's legible, of course.
Yeah, I do like kind of the flair, the panache, if you would, for different players and their style. And I think Kibler is the one that a lot of people always think of when it comes to like the way he hand shuffles versus other people, both fast and like the left to right to front to back nature that he does. It's very unique. All right, Botanical Sanctum passing the turn. Island pass back. Sarah Judge taking a seat over there at the top of your screen. Watch the match. Opt bottom draw. Hits Storm Chaser's Talent. Draw for the turn. Torch the tower. Botanical Sanctum number 2. You can use that to play Storm Chaser's Talent. Looks like Ray maybe wants to Spell Pierce this and is going to. A little killing your darlings moment. Mountain into Draycatcher. All right, Kevin found Spirebluff Canal. He now has Core Steel Cutter mana. We were missing the red before. Here's Cutter.
Three color mana in standard is still a little shaky. Kevin does have Analyze the Pollen and the rarely seen Tarnation Vista, fixes of sorts, but yeah, you will get into these spots sometimes, right? Where you have cheap cards across all 3 colors and you're missing a color entirely, or you only have one blue source, but your hand is full of blue pips, that kind of thing. So good that Kevin found that, and the game continues. But a braid, therefore, Chorizo color. Basic island there for Kevin,
Yeah.
who only has 3 cards left. Yeah, we've had a lot of stuff trading off with other stuff so far.
Mhm.
A little bit of awkwardness from both sides.
Yeah, no hearts, no up the beanstalks like we've seen in so many other games. All right, Drake Catcher sticks and a passing back to Kevin.
You can't spell Samsoni without Mason. Just saying.
That's so true.
Some food for thought.
Nick Miller getting in on it.
So yeah, we're kind of back in the same pattern, right? Of all the Drake Hatcher's poised to attack and do its thing, and you could bounce it again, but bouncing is temporary by nature. So ideally, Kevin would want a more permanent solution, but none forthcoming right now.
Yeah. And Ray just willing to take the one, right? Doesn't feel like we need to go in on anything, doesn't need to get fancy. Then post combat, looks like we're going to cast another Drake Catcher.
Well, if you couldn't beat the first, the second one is a problem.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Kevin really wants to draw like something that gets some, gas going here, and could torch the tower down a Drake Hatcher, right? Get a scry, and if Ray has nothing, remove a Hatcher, in exchange for this torch and the monk.
Right. But what are the odds that Ray
Yeah,
just has no instant of any kind, right?
very small, but if it's the right instant or sorcery you're getting rid of, it could be really good. Now, Opt is a punishing one. If it
Yeah.
was something like Spell Pierce that Ray was trading off to save the Drake Catcher just via prowess, you could be pretty happy with something like that. All right, looks like we're gonna scry to the bottom on Torch the Tower.
And Kevin just 2 lands in hand, so flooding out at the worst possible moment here, really.
All right, has drawn a This Town Ain't Big Enough.
I mean, that can fog for a turn, I suppose, but no, beanstalk or talent or anything like that for Kevin to exploit the symmetry there.
Yeah. Kevin's maybe best hope is that Ray goes in on these Drake Catchers and we just bounce both of them. By a lot of time. Now, Ray has not been playing that way until it's been lethal. Here's Storm Chaser's talent. That's going to trigger prowess of both these Hatchers. I'm going to play another Storm Chaser's talent. All right, both these Hatchers are 3/3s, threatening to make some Drakes if they connect. Interesting moment for Kevin. Could bounce both of these. Could bounce both the Otters.
I think you have to bounce both hatches. I mean, it doesn't feel good, but nothing will here.
Yeah. All right. So that resolves. Could have maybe been a massive Spell Pierce moment, but it wasn't. Now, Ray can redeploy this Drake Catcher and pass back to Kevin in a really powerful position here. Hearth Elemental, up the Beanstalk. These are the kind of cards Kevin needs right now. Opt a relook.
This is okay. Analyze a pollen. So this can find, or has to find, Hearth Elemental, which can soak Genius. So if this is, if a comeback is possible, this is the beginning of it, right? But
Yeah.
there's a lot that you have to slog through.
All right. So analyze again the Hearth, like you said. Probably going on an old adventure here to get 2 new cards. And we need this to all happen, Dom, and Ray not to go something like stock up Monstrous Rage next turn. Just like hit us for a ton, put us on the back foot. So let's get 2 new cards, see what happens.
Yeah, but it also has the 2 talents there, so any high impact instant or sorcery is coming back for more and then coming back again potentially with enough time.
Yeah. All right. We've drawn the boiler room in the sauna. We also have an opt. We're losing a life here to the Pain Land. Play Hearth Elemental. And we're going to pass the turn back, saving opt for now. All right. Stock up, Piers. It's really good always, especially in a situation like this.
First of many stock ups as well, if the game goes that long.
Verge coming down. That's going to help us keep training spells. Quarry Steelcutter in hand, into the Floodmaw in hand. Yeah, and it looks like Ray's going to bounce this here. Now, we could see opt into Spell Pierce. Attack here for 9. This does threaten to make a Drake. Opt. A Thinker. Are we looking for Afaras? Finds Corey Steelcutter. Takes 9. And now that Drake Hatcher can hatch some Drakes if need be. All right, and 3 cards in hand for Ray. 1 is that Drake Catcher behind those lands. 2 are unknown. And Storm Chaser Talent, the draw for Kevin Dom.
So this turn can involve a lot of stuff, but it's at best he's kind of getting back to parity, right? And then Ray just untaps and gets the first, level talent to get back a bounce spell or a stock up or really anything else.
Mm-hmm. All right, Corey Steelcutter. Into Hearth Elemental. Trigger Flurry. Interesting. We could play Storm Chaser's Talent here. Unfortunately, we can't level it up. Red mana is a little bit of a choke point right now. Even though, despite having such sort of an anemic start going on here, is starting to scrape it back together. Probably needs a turn or 2 more of things not going too sideways. As our first Drake appears on coverage. All right, it's a backward sleeve.
It's a Drake in spirit.
Yeah.
I thought it would never happen, honestly.
It's not like us. As we're going to draw for turn. I think there's another end of the Floodmaw in the hand, maybe? Core Steelcutter coming down, triggering Prowess. This could be deadly, Dom. Ray's moving pretty quickly, too.
Our producers saying they forgot about Drake tokens, and until now they got away with it. But now the jig is up. They're exposed.
Players confirming life totals. Kevin's like, yep, I had to take a pain in order to play this red spell last turn. We sort of know the Drake is connecting in the air. Obviously, some interaction could get in the way, but that kind of means Kevin's at 6, sort of. Oh, look at that. It's great art, too. Wow. Judge on point there. Into the Floodmaw. Going to bounce the Monk. We know nothing in hand here from Kevin. Kevin needs to posture a little bit in the hopes that Ray might overthink things, but Corey Steelcutter triggers. And now, Dom, I think this might be lethal. We're very close to it as... Oh, Bounce Off is going to bounce the Otter.
Wow.
triggers prowess and everything. And yeah, I mean,
Crunch.
yeah. Kevin double check still can't do it. Congratulations there to Ray Zhang, but I know CFTSOC. Moving on to our top four, dangerously close to getting that world invite here, along with the trophy and putting on a masterclass with this deck this weekend so far.
Yeah, dominant performance in that match, honestly. And sad to see Kevin's run under. I mean, this is the downside of having a great matchup like this, right? Is you're going to lose one of these, but amazing run by Kevin, great innovation, well deserved invite, and glad to see him do his thing and be back on the PC as well.